intro. So commissioner, staff, and meeting participants, thank you for joining us this evening for the June 2nd, 2021 Monte Sereno Site and Architectural Commission meeting. Before the meeting's called to order, I'd like to point out a few things to assist commission members, staff, and members of the public to successfully participate in this meeting. Commissioners, if you could please keep your microphones muted until you wish to speak. You have a hot mic. For this commission meeting, we're using Zoom to host the meeting. At the bottom of the Zoom client, there are two icons, chat and raise hand. Please use chat only to report technical issues, such as being unable to hear a commissioner speaking. Please use the raised hand if you'd like to be recognized and enabled to speak to the commission by the chairperson. Comments in the chat feature will not be part of the public record. For the public to comment under oral communication or on any agenda item, in addition to using the raise hand feature, emails can be submitted to the city planner, limited to 350 words, and they will be read into the record. This limit is set to adhere to the typical 3-minute allowance. Only attendees using the Zoom application can use the raise hand option to comment. Participation from a telephone will allow for listening only and does not allow for any feedback. And finally, because we are not all in the same room, all votes at this meeting will be taken by roll call.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hamilton. Let's do our call to order and roll call, if you will, please.
Commissioner Booker.
Here.
Commissioner Sharma. Commissioner Zeidler.
Here.
Commissioner Harrington. Chairperson White.
Present.
Just to note, Commissioners Harrington and Sharma are absent. 3 commissioners are present, so we do have a quorum.
Great, thank you, Ms. Hamilton. And in relationship to orders of the day, do we have anything that?
Everything is as on the agenda. I did forward 2 resident comments on our second item, and I will read them into the record once we get to that item.
Great, thank you. All right, we're going to start with oral communications. This is an opportunity for the public to come forward and talk to the commission about anything that it thinks is within our purview, but is not something that is agendized tonight. So if there's something on the agenda tonight that you're planning to speak about, this is not your opportunity to do that, but rather wait until that particular item on the agenda is called. Is there anybody, if you use the raise hand feature, I'll know to call on you, but is there anybody that has something to speak about that independent of what's on the agenda tonight? Seeing nothing, we're going to move forward then. Other than the 2 written communications, Ms. Hamilton, that you spoke about in relationship to an agenda item, do we have any other written communications?
No.
Okay. And we'll move straight into approval of the minutes for the May 12, 2021 meeting. Patrick and Allison, I hope you guys had an opportunity to look at those minutes. They looked pretty complete to me. Does anybody want to make a motion to approve those?
I'll motion to approve those.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
And Ms. Hamilton, will you make a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Booker.
Yes.
Commissioner Zeidler.
Yes.
Chairperson White.
Yes.
And because Harrington and Sharma are absent, I will not include them in the roll call unless you feel that I should, but it's assumed that they are not here, so they'll be an absent.
That's fine.
So that motion passes 3-0-2 with Commissioners Harrington and Sharma absent.
Great. All right, we're going to move to our agenda now. We have 5 items on the agenda tonight. We'll start with item 1, which is 17509 Via Sereno. And if you could introduce that particular application to us, Ms. Hamilton, we can consider it.
Yes, thank you. This is a tree removal request for a 31-inch in circumference cedar tree located in the front yard of 17509 Via Sereno. The applicant submitted pictures and a conceptual landscape plan. Again, the purpose to remove this tree is to accommodate upgrades in the landscaping as well as, I think you can see that there's maybe a little overcrowding, but there will be a Deodar Cedar remaining on the frontage of that property. So from staff's opinion, with a one-to-one replacement, I don't see any issues with supporting the removal of this smaller cedar tree. With that, I'm available for any questions. And I know the applicant is present to speak.
Sorry, I can mute myself. Great. Thank you, Ms. Hamilton. Does the applicant want an opportunity to speak tonight? Well, welcome to hear from him or her. Mr. Mecca?
This is Brian Mekachuk. Can you hear me?
We can now. Thank you.
I'm delighted to be in front of the Site and Architectural Commission, although I wish the other commissioners were here. This tree removal is part of a larger landscaping plan that includes the application for a fence that's taller than 7 feet. And unfortunately, you're not hearing that application tonight because the law does not become effective until tomorrow night. So that will be in the next meeting. In any event, the tree has been here since we purchased the property in 1997, and it has not grown a bit. And it is a Deodar Cedar, as a matter of fact. And it's interesting when I look at item 2 on the agenda, that's over a couple blocks on Bruce. And I also remember across the street from that particular location on Bruce, there was another Deodar Cedar that has been approved to be removed. So these Deodar Cedars, they take a while to grow, but ours seems to be the smallest one of the 3 that were all planted in the same era. In any event, I would like to replace it with at least one 24-inch box tree, but probably 2. And I'd like to put a Monterey cypress in the front, as well as perhaps a blue oak. So they will be trees that are local to the area, other than the Monterey cypress, but that's a little ways away. It seems to be a pretty straightforward application, and if you have any questions.
I do not. Any commissioners, any questions for Mr. Mekachuk?
No, not me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mekachuk. Anybody else from the public that wants to speak on this? If you use the raise hand feature, I'll know to call on you. All right, seeing none, I'm going to close public comment in relationship to this particular application. I don't know how my other commissioners feel, but I'll start and simply say this looks pretty straightforward, something we ought to approve without any hesitation. There's going to be a replacement tree. I'd make a motion to approve the application as submitted with the findings that are referenced in our memorandum of decision for this particular application.
I second that.
Ms. Hamilton, can you do a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Hang on. Commissioner Zeidler,
Yes.
Commissioner Booker,
Yes,
Chairperson White.
Yes.
Just to note that motion passes 302 with Commissioners Harrington and Sharma absent.
Great. Good luck, Mr. Mekachuk. Thank you. All right, we're now going to move to item number 2, which is another Deodar cedar tree. If you could introduce that for us, please, Ms. Hamilton.
Yes, thank you. This application is located at 17770 Bruce Avenue. It is, again, a Deodar cedar tree that measures approximately 8 feet, 6 inches. It's in the front of the property along the side close to the street and does interfere with some overhead utility lines and has been, trimmed as such. And also, as the applicant has presented, it does cause property damage given its location next to driveway and adjacent property. Again, with a one-to-one replacement within the front yard area, staff does not anticipate, a problem with the removal of this tree. Again, on the condition that, they don't necessarily put one in the same location, but if they can locate one within the front, great. Otherwise, someplace on the property.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Ms. Hamilton. Is the applicant with us tonight? And if so, does he or she wish to speak on this particular application? Okay. Mr. Giordano?
Good evening. How are you? Can you hear me?
We can. Thank you, Mr. Giordano.
Great. Thank you so much for hearing us tonight. As indicated in the application, there are a couple reasons that we were interested in removing this tree. The first is related to the power pole with trees and branches that regularly need to be removed. The second is the root system, which is causing a growing number of cracks in our driveway to the point where, believe it or not, our children are actually tripping on them, and we're seeing, minor injuries associated with that. The third is that we're seeing some pest problems related with the opening of the driveway and ants and other pests coming up and going towards the house. We're happy to place another tree on the property. We actually have 5 pretty massive redwoods as well as 8 other trees on the property. So we are, excited to figure out a place to put it. Unfortunately, this tree is just not in the right place.
Great. Any questions for the applicant, commissioners? All right. Thank you, Mr. Giordano. I'm going to open this up to public comment. Is there anybody that wants to speak on this particular application? I see Ms. Hughes' hands raised, excuse me.
Yeah, hi. My name's Carol Hughes. We live right next door to the Giordinos, and the tree is actually right in between our 2 driveways. It's a big, giant tree. I hate to see it go. If in fact it does need to go, we really, really would like to see another large tree right in that place. It happens to be right in front of a giant power pole. And if there's nothing there, that giant, power line is going to be very, very front and center between our 2 houses. So if a large tree can go in the place of that one, we would appreciate that.
Great. Thank you very much, Ms. Hughes. Council members, I'm going to ask the applicant to come back online just for a second. And let's ask the basic question. If an acceptable tree can be found, can it be planted in that same location? Mr. Giordano, what's your thought on that?
I'm actually happy to place another tree in that location, provided that the root system does not create the same type of damage that we're experiencing right now. So perfectly happy. I just would need to consult with an arborist or someone that would find the right type of tree that doesn't have strong enough roots to push up the driveway. That would be our preference.
Understood. Thank you very much, sir. All right. Anybody else from the public that wants to speak on this particular topic or application? Seeing none. All right, I'm going to close the public comment portion and circle back to the commissioners.
This is Jeannie, the city planner again. I just wanted to, I know I had forwarded them to the commissioners, but I did receive 2 emails from residents in the area. One from Joe Cerrito, Dear Monte Sereno Planning Commission. I hope this receives you well. We would like to add our support for removal of the extremely large Deodar Cedar tree across the street from our home. We worry as a family about the power lines that intertwine between its branches, along with the threat branches could collapse at some point during a storm event onto our home or vehicles. Please consider our recommendation in support of removing the tree. And again, that's from Joe and Lori Cerrito at 17771 Bruce Avenue. The other email I received is from David and Emily Pearl at 17830 Bruce Avenue. This letter is written in support of the proposed removal of that certain Deodar Cedar tree located at 17770 Bruce Avenue. As a neighbor and driving by the tree each day, and after reviewing all of the information concerning this tree, I believe it is in the best interest to allow for its removal. So those are the two emails I received today in support of this application.
Great, thank you, Ms. Hamilton. All right, now I'll close the public comment, having heard those emails read to us. Commissioners, thoughts on this particular application?
Can I ask Commissioner Hamilton, did you see the damage the tree was causing when you were out there?
Yeah, you can see the cracks in the driveways, as well as, you know, its proximity to the utility lines and, you know, the trimming that's been done over the years. This really, again, very typical of planting years ago. These were nice little pint-sized evergreens that have outgrown their location. There are other more appropriately sized landscape trees that could be planted in its place. But unfortunately, this is in a place where it's going to continue to cause the damage to the driveways, the roots, and you know, at some point, the utility lines, as it's constantly being trimmed by PG&E.
Thank you, Ms. Hamilton. Anybody else with questions for city planner? All right. I think this one is, again, pretty straightforward. My only question to commissioners is whether we condition removal of the tree on replacement at the same location.
I would agree with that. I think the problem's only going to get worse with the lack of water in the groundwater, because those roots will rise at a faster rate and do more destruction. I know that just from personal experience, but I would also like to see it replaced with something larger, you know, as opposed with the exception of something that, you know, has an acceptable root system that won't cause a damage. But I would like to see it be replaced with something, a larger tree, if that can be done.
May we specify an evergreen?
You can, again, you can get when you say evergreen, what do you mean as an evergreen? There are a lot of people, there are evergreen Bradbury pear, there are evergreen
Just means
it
something that,
it doesn't lose its leaves.
right.
So
that's what I-
versus, yeah, because
Right.
sometimes
Because
people
the
will say
home, I
evergreen.
think it had a few trees off to the left and then this big tree on the right and no other trees that I remember off the top of my head in the front. So you'd want the replacement, I think, to, you know, have leaves or needles or whatnot throughout the year. And City Planner Hamilton, apologies for misstating your title earlier.
Oh, that's okay.
This is a 3-day weekend.
So currently, as presented to you, we have a condition that a 24-inch box replacement tree of appropriate size and species shall be planted in the location the tree is to be removed and located such that it will not interfere with the overhead utility lines. If you wanted to specify I would call it a non-deciduous tree as opposed to evergreen, because that could be misinterpreted to be more of a, you know, pine or cedar or something like that, but one that retains its leaves year round.
That would be my thought And also, you know, the neighbor wanted some coverage of the utility pole, so that would ensure a little more coverage, I suppose.
All right. So the memorandum of decision for the tree removal permit before us, it's TR-T103, is amended to require the applicant to replace at that location the tree that is being requested to be removed with one that is, use that phrase again, Ms. Hamilton,
Well, it's evergreen or non-deciduous.
non-deciduous. That was
Deciduous meaning it loses its leaves.
fancy.
So
Okay. So with that amendment to the memorandum of decision, I would move to approve this application. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
All right, and Ms. Hamilton, if you'll do a roll call for us, please.
okay, Commissioner Booker,
Yes.
Commissioner Zeidler,
Yes.
Chairperson White.
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes 302 with Commissioners Harrington and Sharma absent.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on now to item number 3 on our agenda, which is a site development permit for 17520 Dave's Avenue. Ms. Hamilton, will you please introduce that agenda item for us?
Yes, just one moment. Okay, thank you. So what you have before you is a site development permit to allow for the addition of approximately 974 square feet, inclusive of a 528 square foot attached garage, and including a covered porch on 3 sides, which is 283 square feet, to an existing 2,358 square foot single story home. This proposal also includes the demolition of an existing 605 square foot carport. And this location is 17520 Dave's Avenue, which is the south east corner of Dave's and Winchester. The proposal, adds additional square footage while also including an attached garage. So the removal of the existing, 4-posted carport. The architecture retains the single story and is, I believe, a very nice upgrade in the exterior design of the home. And again, this is a kind of a difficult lot, but they are, I think, doing a very good job expanding the existing home and, adding square footage that provides for, what you would typically find with a single story home. So with that, I'm available for any questions.
Any questions, commissioners?
Nope.
Great. Is there anybody here that wants to speak on behalf of this particular application? If so, if you could use the raise hand feature, then I'll know to call on you.
I believe the architect is present.
All right.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I'm present here. I do not expect to have any speech for this project, but I'm here available if the commission or anyone have any question regarding to the design of this project.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sun. Anybody have any questions for the designer here?
I was wondering the trim colors, and I see the, accent colors and such. I don't see them in my printout of the rendering. So I was curious, where does the color come in on the front?
You still can hear me, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the color we set itself basically the main color for the body of the house, the trim basically around the window, or any kind of a belly band that we can provide on. Actually, not a belly band, more like trim below the eave. When we develop further, that's something we can add on to it. But that's a whole color scheme that we expect to see on this project.
Any other questions for Mr. Sun? All right, anybody from the public that, thank you very much, Mr. Sun. Anybody from the public that wants to speak on this application? Mr. Mekinchuk.
Hi, I live 4 houses away from the project, and I can see the roof across the 2 houses between us, and there's a clear story window that is on the south side of the building, but that is above eye level, or above whatever I think is maybe at least 10 feet off the ground. I think the building is a nice addition to the neighborhood, and I would support the project. And I do have a question. I'm curious to know, and I'm not sure if I'm allowed to ask questions, but it seems that with the size of this project, I'm wondering if it has to include solar panels or not, because I didn't see those on this application and on the other application that's on the agenda tonight. I'm not sure if I can ask that question or not.
That'll be determined at the building permit stage. This being an addition to an existing, and whether or not that's it meets any sort of threshold that might require that. And the other one again would be a new construction. So again, I don't really know the building code, but if the building code requires solar panels on new construction, then at the building permit stage, that's what will happen. But we don't really have discretion relative to solar panels on residential construction.
Anything further, Mr. Mekinchuk?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you for speaking in support of the application. Anybody else that wants to speak in relation to this particular application? Mr. and Mrs. Dinesh, I see your hand raised.
Hi, this is Sumati Dinesh, and I'm the homeowner. A sincere thank you to Mr. Mekichuk and to all the members for supporting our application. We've lived on Dave's almost for 6 years now, and now we're trying to fulfill our dream of remodeling our house and growing our family here. We have 2 kids. The older one goes to Dave's Avenue School, so we're very much part of the community. And Mr. Mekichuk, in regards to your question about the solar panels, that's something that we're actively considering as well, just in light of all the power shutdowns that we have in the summer when the fires start. So we do want to make our house as green as possible, and definitely adding solar panels and adding EV chargers, all of that is on our agenda. So if there was any resources that you might be able to share offline, we would appreciate it. Thanks.
Any questions for the applicant, commissioners?
I have one question. On the rendering, it almost looks as if the garage door is completely transparent. Is it indeed that transparent, or is that kind of got some color to the glass? Or
Mrs. Dinesh?
It's not transparent, more like it's just a rendering. We wanted to add something like a glass, like what do you say, like a tinted glass. We've seen a couple of houses, especially there's one modern style house on Twin Creeks that we do like, and we were trying to get something like that, more like a wood panel with some frosted glass kind of a look on the garage.
Okay.
Yeah, the idea is to allow light to pass through, but not make it transparent.
Great. Thank you very much. Anything else, Commissioner?
I don't
All
have other questions, no.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Dinesh. Anybody else that wants to speak on this particular application before I close public comment? Very well. Thank you, everybody that has spoken on behalf of it. We're going to circle back now to the commission for some discussion regarding this particular application. Anybody want to take the lead?
I think it's a good project. I mean, I've kind of kept my eye on it as we've been going along. These folks have, they spent a lot of time building a wall around the property and did a very good job of constructing that wall. I know it wasn't cheap, that's for sure. And I think that just looking at the plans and looking at the design of the property, I think it actually is it fits in with the neighborhood and the trends that we're seeing in the neighborhood. I would definitely be in support of it.
My thought, I think overall it's attractive and, will definitely be an upgrade to the neighborhood, replacing the current house. I wondered a little bit if it might benefit from being softened with some stone, something textural. I don't know if it would show behind the wall, if it, doesn't make sense to put additional detail that won't be seen. But I feel like a lot of the modern farmhouse homes we see do have a few different textures.
I wouldn't disagree. However, again, if you drive by this location at the corner of Winchester and Dave's, you barely see the home at all. They've, out of necessity, because of the high traffic, both car and pedestrian, as Commissioner Booker said, have put a lot of money into a solid wall, but is attractively landscaped on the outside. So unfortunately, we won't get the benefit of seeing, most of the upgrades that they do to this house. But that being said, if you think it's important, you can request that. Again, I don't see the wall coming down, and I don't see this street really this home being opened up to the view of the street.
I wouldn't want to require additional expense if it really, practically speaking, doesn't change what people see. So I think that's a very relevant mitigating fact.
Well, I agree with Patrick. This is just a tough lot, and I think this is really an accomplishment on their behalf to create a design that affords them as much space without being intrusive on the neighbors. But I also agree with Allison in relationship to the starkness of it, and to Mr. Meckenchuk's concern regarding solar. If you're going to have a big white house with solar panels on it, you're only going to create more glare than ever. So I would encourage the applicants to be cognizant of that and respectful to the neighbors, given the choice in color of the particular home that they've submitted to us. But with that, I see no obstacle to approving this. I think the findings that are set forth in the SS 2109 that's before us can be made, and I would make a motion to approve the application based on that memorandum of decision.
I'll second the motion since Commissioner Booker's muted.
Okay. Ms. Hamilton, will you do a
I didn't want to be, but I was, yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Allison.
Commissioner Zeidler,
Yes.
Commissioner Booker,
Yes.
Chairperson White.
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes 302 with Commissioners Harrington and Sharma absent.
Great. Good luck to our applicants and their designer. Thank you. All right, now we're moving on in our agenda to another site development permit located at 17696 Bruce Avenue. And when you are ready, Ms. Hamilton, if you would introduce us to that particular application, we can.
Okay, so what you have before you is a site development permit for 17696 Bruce Avenue. This did come before you at your last meeting on May 12th. At that time, the commission was not ready yet to approve the design as submitted. It is a construction of a new 3,301 square foot single story home, inclusive of a 622 square foot daylight basement. It presents what I would call somewhat of a modern ranch home. It's single story at the street level. And then because a lot of these lots on the south side of Bruce slope down, it's integrated daylight basement at the back. I think I'll let the architect speak to the changes that they made and how he feels that they addressed the concerns of the commission from the last meeting. Again, from a staff's standpoint, the proposed design as presented fits within the mix of homes up and down Bruce Avenue, where we may very well see more of this because there are a lot of small homes that are being turned over in the market, and the older homes being torn down and new constructed. And a lot of properties owners, just as you talked about with the last one, are looking for really to design and develop an energy efficient home that is proposes a low carbon footprint, clean energy, passive solar heating and whatnot. So, and I think this proposed design does that. So with that, I'm available for questions, but I also know that the architect is present and I think could better address design changes that serve to address the concerns that the commission expressed at the last meeting.
Sorry. Anybody have a question for Ms. Hamilton, independent of the design concerns articulated last meeting that we'll hear from the designer on? Okay. Then I'm going to open the public comment, and Mr. Gianella, please welcome back. Thank you.
Hello, good evening, Commissioner. Can you hear me?
We can. How are you?
Great, very well, thank you. And
Good.
thank you for giving us another opportunity in short time.
Of course.
Yes, like Senator Hamilton stated, we listened carefully to your comments, which mostly had to do with a more balanced front elevation, more symmetry, and a way to have a building that is modern, but that stands out a little less, that is more harmonious and balanced. And so with that directive, what we tried to do was simplifying the lines of the roof, mostly in particular of the front clear story. And we simplify those shapes so that we have a more clear focal point toward the entry of the house and the windows above that. And in a way that we have eliminated one zigzag of the roof of overhang on the front. We also have provided what I think are more real life perspectives, considering that the finished floor of the proposed house is about 12 inches higher than the current one, and therefore at a human eye level height, you'll probably see a lot of the underside of the roofs rather than the very back roofs. And so we adjusted those perspectives, again, adjusted some of the angles in the front of the roof. We also heard the concerns about the whole appearance being presented a little bit in a stark way, and so we introduced a better landscaping plan with some decorative trees in the front, as well as introducing some colors, stucco colors that are more earthy tones, light light gray or off-white as opposed to the brighter white that we had before. And so we feel that all things considered, now the house blends with the lot. I would like to remind the commissioners that the apparent height of the house, as seen from the front, so where you don't see the lot looking down in the back, it's only, I believe, like 16 feet or so. So it's really definitely the single-story house as seen from the street. Yeah, other than that, we adjusted some of the clear story windows proportions and locations, but we are keeping them on the side, especially because we feel, like Planner Hamilton was mentioning before, that it will provide a great deal of benefits, both from a natural light perspective, but also for what we mentioned the last time, that chimney effect, where we can open some of them and exhaust the heat that accumulates towards the ceiling without having to use air conditioning as much. All of that while keeping a large, simple roof plane in the back facing south, so that we can maximize the future installation of photovoltaics where nobody will see them at the back of the property. So these are the adjustments that we made, and I hope that the color drawings that we forward will speak to that.
Thank you, Mr. Ginell. Do any commissioners have any questions for the designer? I know the applicants are here as well.
I don't suppose you have a side-by-side of the prior rendering and the current rendering? We don't need it. It would just be really nice if you happen to have it.
I thought I saw one in here. All right, doesn't appear to be a response to that. So any other questions independent of that, to which there may be a response? All right, very good. Mr. Yoza and Ms. Chu, did you guys want to speak tonight, or are you satisfied with the comments of your designer? Just use the raise hand feature if you want to talk. Otherwise, you don't have to. It's an opportunity. Okay, I see your hand now. You have the floor. Mr. Yoza, Ms. Chu? Can you hear us?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes. Verizon, it says you're there, yes.
Okay, we unmuted the Jabra, but not on the screen. So thank you again for taking the time to review our application. I think Davide did a great job in quickly turning around a proposal to address the concerns from the last time. And I also sent in a comment to Jeannie that sort of deals with this section of Bruce, which has quite a number of different types of architectures. And we really did want to build a single-story house and not build a two-story massive structure that is built right out to the setback. So, and I think we accomplished that with this design. That's it.
Great, thank you very much. Anybody have any questions for the applicant? I don't have any questions, but I appreciate the submission and the changes made, and as well as some images of the other lots or parcels nearby and some of the designs that are similar to what you've submitted. So thank you and your designer for doing that. Commission appreciates it. All right, other public members that want to speak on this particular application, if you do, please use the raise your hand feature and I will know to call on you. All right, seeing none, I'm going to close public comment and circle back to my fellow commissioners regarding this particular application as modified before us now from what we saw was a month ago. Any comments? Does this satisfy some of the concerns of commissioners expressed last month?
I was looking at the side-by-sides from the previous set of plans that we were given. Allison had mentioned that. And I think the subtle changes that have been made on it do bring it back into balance, that, make it look a lot more, I think, in character with what you would see in the neighborhood like that, but more balanced. And I think the increased elevation of the back part of the structure over the garage really helps quite a bit in terms of evening it out, so to speak. So
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. Allison, anything?
Yeah, it looks good. My overall impression is that it looks better.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that is a big part of it, the changing the roof line and the color. It looks really nice, a little softer.
Yeah, I agree. The roof line was my concern, and I think they've addressed that adequately.
Yeah.
All right, having heard those comments, is there a motion for approval of memorandum decision SS21-06 tonight?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Well done, Patrick. All right, Ms. Hamilton, will you take a vote for us?
Okay. Shoot. Commissioner Booker,
Yes.
Commissioner Zeidler,
Yes.
Chairperson White.
Yes.
So that motion passes 302 with Commissioners Harrington and Sharma absent.
All right, good luck to the applicants and their designer. Thanks so much for coming back to us. We really appreciate it. All right, that leaves us with our last item on the agenda, item number 5, and it's a site development permit, 2 of them for 2 homes, SS21-07 and SS21-08. And when you're ready, Ms. Hamilton, we'd love an introduction to this particular.
Okay. Thank you. As I get organized here. So what you have before you is basically 2 site development permits for new homes on 2 future lots. This was a tentative subdivision that came before the commission for recommendation to council. The council did approve the tentative subdivision map. So that property now is going through the final map process. And while it goes through that process, we are able to bring the site development permits before you for your recommendation. They'll be, whatever your recommendation is, will be moved on to City Council, coincident with the final map when it's ready to be presented to council. So again, you have 2 lots. There's a front lot, which is approximately 90-some hundred square feet. Again, you'll see it's a single-story home, and the designer utilizes basement area. One of the unique restrictions on the development of both of these lots, given that it was a subdivision, excuse me, along a scenic highway, Highway 9, is that they're limited to 15 feet above the highest natural point for each lot. So for that front lot, he's had to integrate some basement living area and kind of, push it down into the ground so that he doesn't extend above that height restriction. So most of the grading is happening with the driveway access. So you'll come off Highway 9 and drive into the garage for the front home and then walk up to the main living area. I did forward, unfortunately, when I loaded up the materials sheets, only one lot was included. So I hope you all got the new one that I forwarded to you for the front lot. Also, for the rear lot, because that lot slopes down, the designer's able to integrate more of a daylight and 2-story element for that. The one thing that, again, they've also had to do is, given the location of this home further back on the lot, integrate a fire truck turnaround. So the main driveway and access back to that second home includes that fire truck turnaround. As part of this also, there's a removal of some significant trees and the inclusion of a landscape plan, which was part of the environmental review to mitigate any potential impact on the aesthetics along the scenic highway. I think the designer presented, both a statement for the front and the rear lot, which explains well, his approach to designing of the homes for each of those lots, and is also here to go into more depth relative to his proposed designs. Again, these site development permits both include the development of a new home as well as the specific tree removals for each lot. So when you do get to a point of an action, you'll have to take a separate action on each of the site development permits, the one for the front lot, inclusive of the tree removals on that lot, as well as the rear lot, inclusive of the tree removals for that lot. So with that, beyond what I've put in the staff report, I'm available for any questions.
Commissioner Hamilton, just for my own edification, in the event of a fire or anything where an emergency vehicle has to come in, how do they get the gate open?
Fire department requires what's referred to as a lockbox. So they can, any property that has a gate, that's always required per the fire department so that they can access through that. Don't ask me exactly how it works.
But it works.
Mr. Jeans can explain in more detail how that system works, but that's how they get to any home where there's a gate on the property.
And Ms. Hamilton, it's true that we're only making a recommendation to the city council. Ultimately, the city council will be approving these.
Correct, because this is a subdivision along a scenic corridor. Per our subdivision regulations, it has put the site and architectural review in the purview of the city council.
Okay. Any other questions for Ms. Hamilton before we hear from the applicant? All right, thank you, Ms. Hamilton. Mr. Jeans, did you want to talk? You have the floor, sir.
Thank you. Can I also share the screen?
It's okay with me, but I don't know how to do that. See if somebody else does. Can we help Mr. Jeans in that respect?
Yeah, we're working on that.
Okay, hold on, Mr. Jeans. Thank you, guys.
Okay, Tony, do what you need to do.
You do that voodoo. You do.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me yet?
Yes, we can hear you, and we're starting to see images, I think, from your computer, perhaps.
Okay, all right. So I'm going to discuss the front house first. And one of the things that will also come up on this one is the front wall, which you also need to make a recommendation on. So as I believe that requires a separate permit for a wall at the front of the property. And you can see my cursor hopefully moving backwards and forwards. It's a wall here, which will also wrap back around on the other side. And you can see it more down at the eye-line view here. So if you were approaching from the council office and you turn right into the gate, this would be the wall that I have to ask you your permission for, because it is more than 3 feet in the front right of way. But let's start with the house. You've already recommended approval of the subdivision, and nothing has changed since then as to the subdivision layout. So these are 3 different views of the front house, you can see that one of the features that I'm doing is I am leaving an area on the roof available for solar panels so that they will not be seen as you approach up and down the street. I don't want a scenic highway to be looking at solar roof panels. So I've expressly hidden an area so you have about a 2'6" wall running internally around the roof so that you can achieve that. And then I had to remove a few trees here in order to widen the driveway, but nothing really significant. There is a more substantial tree removed a little further back, and I'll skip down here. So I'm now looking at the front lot. This is the location of the house. There is a tree here that I need to remove. There is also, I'm trying to keep this oak tree over here, but I'm removing a redwood on this property line, which is a significant tree, but I don't think belongs there, and I prefer to keep the oak, which I think is much more appropriate. So at the bottom of this page, you can see the actual design of the wall. The wall is stone columns with stucco between, caps on the columns. I'm limited to 6 feet, notwithstanding the new fence rule that came around. I can't even ask you for more than 6 feet, I understand. If I could ask you for 7, I would. There is also a wall for which I just need your aesthetic comment on. We have a wooden retaining wall at the front. I'm moving it back. At the moment, you can see that this dotted line along the front here is where the current wood retaining wall is, and we're moving it back to the property line. It's currently encroaching. We don't want to do that. So this is what we're replacing it with. And then when you put shrubs in front of it, similar to some Californica varietals, Miraca Californica or something like that, I think you'll end up with a very, very pleasing frontage. I'll skip down a little bit. These are just 2 other sheets of renderings. This is more down at pure elevation level. So you're looking at more realistically what you would see as you approach the property. This is as you are driving from the front lot to the rear lot, and then you can see where the driveway turnaround is on the bottom one here between the 2 homes. And what I was trying to achieve was that the 2 houses facing each other across the driveway turnaround will both look like 1 story. Yes, this looks like a 2-story as you come in, but that's a daylight basement. You'll go past it and then it'll look like a 1-story house, which is basically what it is. Again, other renditions of the house as you move around it, the actual elevations and the reality of what you see, which is obviously different. And that is pretty much what I have done with the front house. Couple of key features on this one, a little bit of grading, but mainly for excavating the basement, which doesn't really count. Apart from that, there's no substantial grading on this property. And the colors, if you had a chance to look at the correct material board, that is available for you to look at. The 2 houses share a common driveway entry gate. A Knox lock is the lock that the fire department uses. You order it from a place in Florida. You get the lock, the fire department gets the key. So they have access to your gate no matter what. And they come out and test that as part of their security at the final. If you have any questions on this one, go ahead, or I can go straight on to the second one. What would you prefer?
Let's take them separately because I think we have to approve them separately. Excuse me. I do have one question for you, Mr. Jensen. Thank you very much for your great presentation. And also, I really appreciated the submittal of the letters kind of explaining the philosophy behind the design.
I'm going to stop sharing so you can have that back unless you want to comment on things
My question is, I remember when we were at the site development permit point in time, and there was a concern expressed by one of the neighbors regarding the effect that the stone and stucco wall will have on transmitting traffic noise from Highway 9 to any of the nearby residents. And I'm curious, it looks like there's going to be some landscaping in front of it that may soften that altogether, but has there been any assessment of the impact of that wall on neighboring lots and the sound from Highway 9?
If I can address that, was an issue with a sound wall along a side property line with the adjacent subdivision and the existing home at the corner of Viewfield and Highway 9. So you don't have that. In fact, those property owners did come in and realize that this development was actually not that 3 lot, but the 2 lot even further away. So there was no concern on their part. This, again, is really not for the purposes of sound attenuation necessarily, because the home itself is providing that sound attenuation to the rear private area. So any deflection of noise will go straight back onto the highway and be absorbed by that.
Is that also your understanding, Mr. Jeans? Mr. Jeans? Mr. Jeans is muted. So,
okay, I'll start again.
Sorry.
Sorry. I didn't realize that I got muted again. Ms. Hamilton is correct in saying that the sound will reflect back. The point of putting something like Mirica californica in front of it is to diffuse that sound. I don't believe that the sound bouncing off trucks and cars traveling along Highway 9 will bounce back and impact people on the other side of the street. No one has brought that to my attention. And I think the combination of the shrubbery along the front, in front of it, will prevent that. And there is a fence now in exactly the same location that we intend to build the wall. It's been there for a long, long time. Okay, you can argue that wood is less reflective of sound than stucco, but I do not see that there will be any problem with that.
Okay.
I was dealing more with the aesthetics. The fence is not in great shape. I would like to replace it and not build a wall directly behind it to hide the, hide the wall. I think it will be attractive.
I appreciate that. I'm just cognizant of a concern expressed by a neighbor in relationship to the Seabourn lot, and that because that wall is going to run along that backside, I think that was where their concern was, and my concerns have been adequately addressed by you and Ms. Hamilton, so thank you. Any questions, Patrick or Allison, for Mr. G in relationship to the front house, which I think is 07 of the two?
None for me.
All right, Mr. Jeans, I interrupted you. Sorry. Tell us about the back house if you have.
Okay, I'm muted. Can I share my screen again?
Yeah.
Thank you. So I'm going to skip past here and go to, this is as you have driven up the driveway, the top picture, and you are looking at what appears to be a 1-story. This is actually a 2-story house, but the 2nd story is partly buried because what we did was elevated the grade a little bit here with some of the basement dirt, so we didn't have to haul everything off, and we enter on the upper level. There is a lower level with some bedrooms and game rooms and things like that. The other 2 pictures over here, I have an ADU. Let me go back to the top one. The ADU is partially below grade. And I did that in order to get privacy for the neighbor on the right-hand side. And I've also put some screening where we can grow wisteria up it to give a privacy buffer between the houses. But it's pretty much below the level of their property, so it's not an impact. Again, looking at the lower picture, you can see that I've put a solar panel area. I'm very in favor of trying to have everyone put solar on their property. This lot is a larger lot. It's 15,000 square feet. And when you take out the access corridor, which is netted out, it's still a 13,000 foot lot. That was done in order to save this large number of trees in the backyard. I did not want to impact them. I also wanted to give a 40-foot buffer between the neighboring homes at the rear on Arley Drive. This is my required setback line here. And you can see that we're staying well back beyond that and keeping a couple of oak trees front and rear of the ADU to flank it. You can see how the driveway comes up. These two houses, when they look across at each other, are each seeing single-story elevations, which I think is very much appropriate. I don't have any wall issues here. We're building a 7-foot fence along here, courtesy of your recent decision and approval from the council. And we're doing that as a 7-foot fence with 6 feet solid and a 1-foot lattice. So we are conventional for what we're allowed here. We did, if you remember, take your suggestion about having 2 energy dissipators in the rear. So we have included that. And I'm just showing you that. You already directed us to do it, but we did follow through. Again, some more views of the property. The front one, top one you've already seen. The bottom one is interesting. You can see how you come down from this roof garden or living roof on top of the ADU. You can come down into the rear yard. The ADU looks out into the lower yard. I've taken out a big tree here. That is just so you can see the property. And on the rear, we have the main level, which you walk in at, but then downstairs, there is a lower level. If I go by and look at it from the rear, you can see that there's a covered patio area. We've broken up the taller elevations with some pop outs so that you don't have just a plain elevation. That was at Ms. Hamilton's suggestion. I like that suggestion. We implemented it. I think the rest is either covered in my letters. Again, there's very little grading. And just glancing at my notes here, we're taking out I'm going to skip back a little bit if I can. We're taking out a giant sequoia here, which is in its infancy, but will become huge. There are no significant trees being removed in this on this property, other than I think the sequoia. So I think it works very well, and I think we've worked well with the neighbors behind, and I think they are, albeit not enthusiastic, but are very accepting of what we are doing, and I think it will be an improvement. The front house, going back to that one, is actually shorter than the existing front house is taller than the one that we're putting back there, because the one that's there is a 2-story, and we're only allowed to go 15 feet above ground, so we can't do a 2-story there. So I think all in all, this is quite a good subdivision, and I think it works. If you were to look at the colors and the materials as I flip through them, you have these on your revised list, and I think you'll find that they're reasonable choices. I think that's all I have to say unless you have questions.
Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Jeans? Very well done, Mr. Jeans. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to speak on behalf of the applicant other than Mr. Jeans tonight? All right. It's back in our lap, folks. So we should take these up separately because we have to make separate motions in relationship to each one. The first will be the front house, which is SS 2107. Commissioners, any comments in relationship? Oh, I think we lost Patrick. There he is. You're back. All right, good. Looking at the front house, which is SS 2107, commissioners, any comments in relationship to that particular application?
I'll comment. I think the materials and the colors and the landscaping is very attractive and will go well on a scenic corridor. It's harmonious with nature. I appreciate that.
Patrick?
I have no concerns. I think it looks great.
I agree. I think they've done a really good job. All right, with that, we have 22107 and the memorandum of decision. I would move that we approve the memorandum of decision as written in relationship to SS 2107. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
All right, Ms. Hamilton, if you'll do a roll call for us, please.
Commissioner Booker,
Yes.
Commissioner Zeidler,
Yes.
Chairperson White.
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes 302 with Commissioners Harrington and Sharma absent.
All right, and then we'll move right away over to SS 2108, which is the rear home. Same comments with respect to it. I think they did a great job. My only concern was the deck, but we're not hearing from anybody on Arley about a deck there, which is what I expected. So they're going to have quite a few trees, as Mr. Jeans pointed out, between the rear of the Arley lots and this particular deck, as well as this new 6 foot plus 1 foot of lattice fence. And because those are already lower, I think that from a site perspective and a sound perspective, they're going to be insulated from any effects of that patio. But anybody else have concerns?
No, my concern at first was just the same as yours with the deck, I think, but the elevations, I guess, help, the fact that it's obviously not something that would be a problem. And then with the additional trees or landscaping, it would probably, it would resolve any issue that I would have with it. And other concerns.
Thank you. Allison?
I'm comfortable with the back house. I'll just note, we have wisteria and it gets pretty unruly. So think before you plant that. I don't know if jasmine or something else might work because we keep having to pull it out of trees. I know that's not part of the approval. That's just my experience.
No, sound advice. We're always here for good for sound advice.
Mhm.
All right, then to move things along, I'll make again another motion to approve SS 2108 or make the recommendation that the city approve SS 2108 and the memorandum of decision that we were provided and reaching the findings reflected in that. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Ms. Hamilton?
Commissioner Zeidler,
Yes.
Commissioner Booker,
Yes.
Chairperson White.
Yes.
Just to note, that motion passes 302. And I will ensure that the front wall is specified in the conditions of approval and not just on the plans, so that the council is aware that their approval is needed for that 6 foot wall in the front setback.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Hamilton. All right, folks, we're at a point in time when we would adjourn, but I don't want to do so without thanking Ms. Hamilton for her years of service to the city of Monte Sereno. This is, I believe, her last meeting. And we
You're
are going
correct.
to, we're going to miss her desperately, at least I will. And Ms. Hamilton, thank you so much for your service to our community. Your insights and recommendations, as just reflected in Mr. Jean's presentation. Ms. Hamilton had a suggestion and it worked great. It is really a compliment to you as a professional in your field, and I wish you all the luck in your future.
Thank you. It's been my privilege to work with what I would consider a very professional commission for the years that I've been here, and it really has been a pleasure. So.
Pleasure for us too. So anybody else have any closing comments? All right. then
We'll really miss you, Jeannie.
Yes, best of luck to you, Jeannie.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, Jeannie, good luck to you. And we are adjourned. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.